headache, emotional, stress, domestic, and all that. But I don't think that's the case. It might be hormonal, actually, because there are some headaches that are related to hormone levels in the females.
Now, there's this common saying sometimes that people make. They say, oh, this child gives me a headache. Is that just a manner of speaking, or does this really happen?
No, I think it's a manner of speaking.
Okay.
No.
So what really, you started by telling me a bit of the headache burden.
Yep.
Can we go through that, complete that thought?
Okay. Well, I said that headache is, well, we know that headache is by far the most common health complaint, all right? And even conditions that, other conditions can cause a headache. So it doesn't happen to be something in the brain alone. Okay, you could have a fever, malaria, for example, and headache would be one of the symptoms. Typhoid, several things. Okay, so it's highly prevalent. But the problem is that it's not just the prevalence, it's actually more that a lot of people are suffering unduly from these headaches, thinking that, well, it's an ordinary headache, you shouldn't complain. You take an analgesic, a painkiller, it's still there, they still continue. But that shouldn't be, because headaches can be properly treated. Okay,
so let's know for the record now, when an individual has a headache, what's the first thing he's supposed to do?
Well, usually it's the common headache would respond to normal over-the-counter painkillers, analgesics, paracetamol, aspirin, or one of the what we call non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents like ibuprofen, brufen. And that's all. You take it, and the headache is relieved, and you're all right. Although there are also things you could do too. You don't need to take medication. You could try that first. If you know that the headache is due to the fact that you haven't rested, simply rest.
Rest.
Yes. Massage helps. Some people talk about relaxation techniques.
Would that be like massage of the temples? Like
yes.
There was somebody on the screen, you know, she was holding the temples.
Yeah,
somehow.
you could do that. Yeah, because we know that some people with tension type headache, there's a contraction of the muscles of the scalp and back of the neck. Okay, these muscles are contracted, and that could be part of the cause.
Yeah, that's
of the
the
headache.
lady. She has her hands on her temples, like she's massaging,
Okay,
you know, the headache
right,
away.
Good. Yeah, it can help. Okay. Now, it's only when this headache is frequent and you need to be taking a painkiller 2 or 3 times, or not 3 days a week, then you know that that's a problem. Okay, and that's when you should see your doctor.
Okay. Now, but there's this type of headache I heard about, called a medication onset headache or something like that.
It's medication,
actually from taking medicines.
It's called medication overuse headache.
Overuse headache.
It's also called rebound headache or painkiller headache.
So where does one draw the line when it comes to taking medicines for headache?
Good. All right. The thing is, when you need to take medication frequently, painkillers frequently, you get to a point where the headache is now caused by the painkiller.
Okay.
All right. So that's why I said if you need to be taking medication 2 or 3 times a week for headache, then you are getting to that threshold
where you should go and see a doctor.
Yes. Because if you do that for months, then your headache will not be as a result of the medication, rather than the primary headache problem
itself.
And then it becomes difficult to treat, actually.
Now, sometimes when one goes to the hospital and complains, okay, I have a headache, you are asked what part of your head is the headache, and how does it feel? What's the significance of this? Okay,
well, it's actually to try and decide the type of headache you have, because migraine headaches tend to be unilateral, one-sided, okay, whereas tension type headache is generalized. You feel it all over the head. It's more like a pressure or a weight on the head, or as if there's a tightness around the head.
Okay, the one that feels like a band.
Like a band, that's the tension type headache. So if your headache is one-sided, when we start thinking of migraine, although it doesn't mean tension type cannot cause that, it can. The other thing is if you have a persistently unilateral headache that is on the same side all the time, that may be slightly worrisome. It might mean that you should be investigated. Could be something, an underlying problem like an aneurysm, or called a dilatation of the vessel and all that. Okay. Well, mostly also there are some headaches, primary headaches, that will cause unilateral headaches persistently on the same side, which is a third type of primary headache, which we haven't said anything about, which is called cluster headache.
Cluster headache, okay.
Yes. That is
Why is it called cluster?
It's called cluster headache because it occurs in what we call clusters. As it starts, and the individual experiences headache every day for going to 8 weeks, and then it stops. And then there's a free period, no headache period, which could last for a year, sometimes 2 years or less in some people, and then it starts again. So that's the clustering. You have it when it starts, you have it daily, no matter what you do.
Like bunches of headache.
That is it.
And then
the remission period just stops by itself, and you are free of headache, and then starts again, and then once it starts, it's daily. Okay. And the curious thing here is it tends to occur at the same time every day, so that you can actually tell the time by
that the headache is coming. How
and that's why it's called alarm clock headache.
Oh,
God, it wakes you up and you know the time.
Why it would be at the same time every day?
It has to do with what we think is the cause, which is a problem in the part of the brain called the hypothalamus, okay, which is a part of the brain that regulates cycles, times of the day. It's what tells us, whether it's morning time, whether it's afternoon, not just by looking at the clock. Okay, so the problem is there, even though it's not known exactly what the problem is, but it's a disorder around the hypothalamus.
Okay, now can somebody actually interpret the headache for himself or herself, like, oh, I have a headache, it's right here in front, it must be so and so, or it is usually so and so that causes this type of headache?
No, the location of a headache really doesn't matter, and even the nature of the headache, or even the severity.
Like this is a frontal headache now.
Okay.
It's right in front at the forehead.
Yes.
Why would it be there and not somewhere else? Wouldn't it be that something particular is causing it?
No. You see, the problem is we really don't understand the full mechanisms of the different types of headache. But what we know is that some headaches are due to changes in neurotransmitters in the brain, and that can be reflected anywhere. It does not mean that if, for example, an individual has a frontal lobe tumor in the frontal lobe, the headache may not be localized there.
Okay.
Yeah, the headache may be referred to
yes,
some other
something
part
they
of
call
the head.
referred pain.
Exactly.
Does that now extend to the neck regions as well?
Yes. It's more often what you have is a situation where a problem in the neck, it's reflected into the head as a headache. Okay. For example, individuals who have stiff neck, cervical spondyloarthritis affecting the neck, can present with headache. All right. So you need to look at the neck when you are evaluating a patient who has, even though the headache will probably be more in the posterior part rather than in front. But you may not have neck pain. All you have is just a headache at the back of your head.
Okay, so that brings me to a very important question. Two important questions, actually. Let's start from the first one. Are there preventive measures, things you can do to make sure the headache doesn't occur?
Okay. Well, that's for individuals who have a headache disorder. most people have occasional headaches. Really doesn't. You really don't need to do much. Take your analgesic to go.